Well, let's get more now on the ongoing situation in Libya. Joining me is Nigel Pont, the Regional Director of Mercy Corps in the Middle East. Nigel, let me ask you quickly just about that story we just were talking about there, that the ICC Chief Prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, says they now have evidence of rape as a weapon of war in Libya. Have your teams on the ground seen any evidence of this?
We haven't seen direct evidence ourselves, but we've heard numerous reports from local communities and from members of the local councils in the areas in which we're working that there have been cases of this. But naturally, the women who are the victims of these acts are very hesitant to speak about this, and there's a real need to put in place systems to deal with the trauma and help these people and the families, not just the women, but the families cope with these things.
Let's just talk about some of the work that Mercy Corps is doing in Libya. You've been working in places like Misrata and Benghazi since March. Tell us how bad the situation got in Misrata. What were your people seeing there on the ground?
I think some of the most acute stuff we saw on the ground was about 3 weeks ago in Misrata, during the height of the shelling of the city. And I think the situation was particularly difficult for some of the third country nationals that were trapped there, who have now largely been evacuated. I think the local council has actually managed to get a very organized system up and running there, and humanitarian supplies are starting to flow into the city.
And what have Mercy Corps been focusing on? Is it things like foodstuffs, getting the market system back up and running again, and so on?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges at the moment with how the markets are functioning. And it's really important that the international community, sort of at the macro level, but also at the local level, ensures that the markets do get back up and running, so that regularly food supplies and also shelter repair materials and things like electrical cable to fix the power plants and that sort of thing get back in.
We've seen NATO step up its bombing campaign over the last few days. We've seen the deployment of Apache helicopters on the battlefield. Do you think, in terms of your assessment, that the humanitarian situation is set to get worse before it gets better as they step up the military campaign on the battlefield?
Yeah, I think we're currently very concerned about the situation in the West, where we don't currently have access and where our Libyan partners don't have access. So there is a concern that unless the situation militarily or politically is resolved relatively quickly, then it'll be very, very challenging on the humanitarian front in the West.
Nigel, let me just ask you a final brief thought on the post-war situation. I mean, how worried are agencies like Mercy Corps about things like unexploded ordnance and the long-term impacts of the war, perhaps on the psychological impact on children, people in need?
Right. Well, I think dealing with unexploded ordnance and that sort of thing is going to be a really critical priority in the weeks and months following that. But I think of larger concern to us are the issues that you mentioned, and the psychological trauma that this conflict in places like Misrata has caused on the population. So focusing a lot of attention and energy on children and how they process the experiences that they've had, and also young people who before had no voice, and now they've managed to express themselves and bring about change using violence. How do they find a middle ground in which peaceful change is a pathway that they learn how to use?
Nigel Pont, thank you for talking to us.